Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's Mike Ames Recruitment Show, where, as you can see, we're going to be talking about how you can get more emails read, and what's linked to that is how to protect your online reputation. Now, as you can see, we have the resident Flair expert on this thing to talk about it today, and then is, of course, the magnificent Peter Ames. Hi, Ped, how you doing?
I'm very, very tired, Kirsty. I did a 1 a.m. webinar for a client in Australia, and I didn't go to sleep till 3. So right now, this is going to be an exciting time because I'm riding on coffee and adrenaline. Always a great mix for a show.
We're all excited, but I mean that's the tiniest violin in the world, and I think that's kind of So, Ped, today we're here to talk about how to get more emails read. What does that mean?
Okay, right. So what we want, ultimately what we want is we want people to read our emails and take action. So they need to open those emails. And the thing that most people are going to be familiar with is the concept of open rate. So I sent 100 emails, 10 people opened them. My open rate is 10%. Okay. And that's the goal. And I'll say this now, the thing that makes the biggest influence on open rate is subject line. You've got to learn to write really engaging, punchy subject lines. And there's a lot out there. We're not going to talk about that today. There's a lot out there on that. I recommend HubSpot as a great source. We're here to talk about the thing that happens before somebody even has the chance to open your email. I'm here to talk about whether or not your email, of those 100 emails you sent, how many actually ended up in someone's inbox.
Right. So we're talking about what happens before the person you want to read it even gets the option to open the email.
Yes. Yeah. And this is something you don't actually get to know. Nobody really knows the deliverability rate of their emails. It's something that's hard to get to. And there's two places it might end up other than someone's main inbox. You've got clutter, which I think we all use Microsoft these days. We all know what the clutter folder is. It's a place where things go to not be read and periodically cleared out. And then you've also got, traditionally the well-known spam junk folder as well. So of the 100 emails you send, only 50 hit the inbox, 25 hit the clutter, and maybe another 25 end up in someone's spam folder. We're here to talk about how you can improve that deliverability rate.
Okay, so one question I have is, what decides whether I end up in clutter or in junk or, God forbid, spam? Who decides that? What decides that?
Okay, so first and foremost, the one that most people are familiar with is the actual content of the email itself. So let's imagine what a spammy email looks like. Just dip into your junk folder to see this. There's lots of images. There's lots of very excitable phrases, not to be missed. Great opportunity.
Exclamation marks. There's always a lot of
exclamation marks scattered all over the place. Yeah. Linking off to sites that have bad reputations, but it just looks and smells like it's spam, really. And again, that's not what I'm talking about. That's not your online reputation. That's the specific email. And there is a tool called mail-tester.com. Thank you. I knew we had the link, which is a great way. You can send an email to that website and it will tell you how spammy it looks and give you advice on how to reduce it. So it's a very nice little tool for looking at these things. But on top of the actual content, there is your reputation as an email sender. So there is the email provider you're using, so the MailChimp or the HubSpot, or perhaps something a little less well known, that says, okay, in the internet, we know that emails that come from that ISP, bit dodgy, right? Okay. Combine that with an email that sounds a little bit spammy, you don't make it, through the door. Also, your domain has a reputation. Okay. So flair.co.uk has a reputation that is either very good or very bad. The way I like to compare it is that it's almost like a credit score.
Right.
Yeah, there's lots of things, lots of historic behavior that goes into determining your current credit score, your email reputation. And it doesn't take much to damage them. A couple of missed credit card payments, a couple of very, very spammy emails. And then it's quite hard to recover. You've got to do a lot of legwork to get it back. So that is ultimately what they look at. They look at the content and they look at the reputation of where the email came from.
Okay, so we've had a couple of comments. So first, hi, Ruella. Lovely to see you. Julia said this, so it's not that emails aren't delivered, it's that emails aren't delivered to the priority email box. Do you think that's a decent summation?
Yeah, there is actually a tiny chunk of emails that might not be delivered at all. The best way what might help is if I actually kind of describe what happens to an email.
Oh, I like this. Let's take us on a
Yeah.
journey, Peter. Take us
on a journey. So let's go old tech, and let's say that we are sending not an email but a letter from a courier, and on that letter is our reputation, so we know where it's come from. And when the courier takes the email, it leaves our email service provider. He takes it out the building, and the first thing he does is he takes it to the internet service providers out there. They provide a service that says they're tracking the reputation of Flare as a provider, and they're checking the reputation of the people we send the email. And they look it over and say, you know what? It's all right. It's middle of the ground. So then the courier takes it to the office building of the person that we want to get to. And the first thing he's going to come across is security. It's called the gateway, email gateway. And that security will look at the package, look at the content, look at the reputation of where it came from, and might say, yeah, you're not coming in. You're so spammy. You've got such a terrible reputation. You are not entering the building. Oh, Kirsty, I've just seen a
yeah,
message.
I've just seen this as well. So, Kyle, sometimes this happens if your internet is a bit confused. That it has happened to me in the past as well. If you refresh your screen, it should bring you up to the time that we are at now. But because you've just restarted, this may not work. So, yes, hopefully that works. Sorry, Pete. So we've hit the guy at the front gate, our gateway, and he's let us into the main building now.
Yes, he's let us in because we've got a decent enough reputation. The content looks good. So we've hit front desk. Front desk looks at it and says, okay, so where's this come from? Okay, that's the courier. Who sent it? Okay. What's in it? If you could just go and wait in that small dark room over there, the spam folder, no one's going to go and look in there. You're going to get cleared out at the end of the day. That's basically what happens. Let's say you get past that stage and they let you up to the individual's office, then you're going to hit the assistant, their personal assistant. Their personal assistant is going to say, okay, well, let me look at the reputation. Okay. But beyond your worldwide reputation on the internet, I know that my boss doesn't want to talk to you. Every time you show up and try and deliver a letter, he just deletes you or just never reads it and lets it disappear over time. So I'm just going to ask you to wait over there in the clutter waiting room. Again, he might come out and come say hi because he goes looking, but it's unlikely. If you pass all of those gates, then you're going to be allowed into the office and your letter will go on the big stack of letters that they're waiting to reply. Except that's how your internet works. That's how emails work.
Okay. Quite a few steps
techie.
there, Ped. Quite a few steps there as well, as if you're sending an email. I didn't realize how many steps it kind of had to go through in order to just even reach my inbox. Okay, so before we do that, I do have one question, which is one from Ruella here, which is, can you find out what your email reputation is?
Yes, you can, and I should have sent this to you, Kirsty. I will do it now because I know that you can get it into a thing. There is a site called Talos Intelligence Reputation Center, and you can find out the reputation of your domain.
Let me just copy this link, guys. So, yes, thank you very much for your question, Ruella. And the answer is yes, you may. If you go here, according to Peter, it will. What does it do? Does it just ask you to type in an email to them and?
It'll ask you the IP domain of your email. So the flare.co.uk domain that you send things from, and then it will tell you, okay, well, this is your reputation in these different factors. I don't want to get into the technical elements of it because most people aren't going to in reality. If it's like a real technical thing, you've got to talk to somebody to fix it. I want to talk about what's within your control.
Okay, so on that, Pete, can we talk about what it is that you sort of can control? What kind of things is your online reputation sort of made up of? What do we do with it?
Okay. So remember I said you've got two online reputations, really. There's the internet, the email service provider you're using, your MailChimp, and then there's your domain. Both of those have the reputation come from the same place. Credit score, to pick that analogy back up, credit score is based on, do you make your payments or miss your payments?
Mm-hmm.
Your internet score, your email score, is based on when I actually let somebody have this email, do they actually open it? Do they engage with it? Do they open it? Do they spend time reading it? Do they reply? Do they click any of the links?
Mm.
That's a big, big element. The other element is how often are you logged as spam? Yeah.
Okay.
So those are the two things we have to think about. Spam reports, very simple. We've all done it. We've all registered. This is a spam email. Don't send it again. It's like missing your mortgage payment. It's an immediate, really bad hit on your score. Your engagement rate is more like maybe occasionally dipping into your overdraft or making your payments on time. And
Okay. So your engagement rate, can we just clarify what that means? So that's that
yeah,
people actually open your emails and they like click on links that are in there, that they reply to your email if that's what you've asked them to do. They're sort of actually engaging with you, I suppose.
yeah, yes, exactly. Yeah. So the easiest one is to think of just pure opens, because
Okay.
to do any of the other things, they've got to open. So if you look at your open rate, you're kind of getting your engagement rate. So just to really hone in on what that is, let's say you send 1,000 emails to your client base and
Yes.
200 people open that email and then do
Great
something
number.
else off the back of
Very
it.
excited
Great
about
number. Great number. I only have an email list of 100 people. And when I send it, 50 of them open it.
So you're
You
getting
got
less
a lot.
opens than me.
I'm getting less opens than you, but my engagement rate, 50 out of 100, is 50%. Your engagement rate, 200 out of 1,000, is just 20%. I've got the better reputation. I'm much more likely to land in the inbox of people I'm sending emails to than you are.
Okay. So it's not just the solid numbers. We have to look at sort of percentages on that. That's interesting. And I know we're going to come back to that in a second. But before we move
Mm,
on to something else, an interesting thing that actually we've got a question. So how
mm.
much can we trust the opening and such figures that we see in Google, Kajabi, etc.? Because things like GDPR means that we don't get the full picture.
Yeah, I think I have never trusted the open rate figures, even before GDPR, because I would do little tests and I'd say, I didn't open that email that I've sent to myself,
Mm,
but it's registering as an open, or I did open it and it hasn't. I think what happens is there are certain technologies that read the email to see what the content is, and that pings off a read receipt. There's lots of different ways it's done. Again, I don't want to get into technical detail because it's not super important, but what's happened recently is it's harder for people to get the positive back. I think there
mm,
was always that problem with false positives. Now it's even harder to get the true positives back. But what it is it's standardized.
mm.
Everybody's facing the same problem. So yes, you might see a 10% open rate and the truth is 15%. But what you want to think about is the trend. Am I getting an increase in my open rates? Is it moving from 10 to 12 to 13? That's what's important. The fact that it's actually moving from 15 to 18 to 25, that's not important. The trend is the thing you want to see. You want to see it going up and you want to see it nice and healthy. We
Okay.
will come back to that question actually later on, because I'm going to say something that will touch on that as well.
Okay, fantastic. And Julie made a very good point. There are lies, damn lies, and statistics. It's a very, very solid point. Okay, Pete. But
Very good
there
point.
was one other thing that I wanted to ask you about. Now, you mentioned to me when we were running through this that
Hmm.
certain companies, like the bigger ones, also have your also take note of what your reputation is internally, correct?
Yeah. If you think of it this way, most of us, the vast majority of us, are using Office 365 Outlook, and they are maintaining their own internal reputation tracker, as it were. KPMG, PwC, like really big multinational firms that you may be trying to approach, they will often look to improve, because email is such a distraction. They will actually
Mm,
spend time and money building their own thing to track your behavior. So there's something that sits between that global reputation and that reputation with that person's one PA that these guys
mm,
will put in place and say, okay, we know that anything from flair.co.uk to all of our partners at KPMG is quite often read. Great.
mhm.
Okay. Flair.co.uk. If something comes to somebody for the first time, make sure it shows up on the inbox. PwC partners hate us. So
Hurtful.
of the 20 we've approached, they've all deleted it and never read it. And so our reputation at PwC is awful. Nothing's
Mm.
changed out in the wide world of the internet, but internally in those really big organizations, our reputation is suffering a little bit.
Okay. All right, so there's a couple of things to take note of. Now,
Mm.
I don't know about people watching this, Peter, but I'm watching this thinking, it's quite a scary world
Mm.
out there trying to get my emails read. So, as always here on the My Games Recruitment Show,
Mm.
we like things to be super proactive. We like to give people things that they can do to improve their reputation.
Yes.
What can be done? I know you mentioned it might take a while, but what can be done? Or at least keep it steady, if nothing else.
Okay. Well, I will hark back a little bit to what I said at the very start, the content of the email.
Mm,
Practice writing less spammy email, less
right.
excitable, less, oh my God, this is the thing you should totally see,
Mm,
because it's not helping.
right.
People aren't reading it, they're deleting it, they're turned off, it's hitting spam filters more, all of that's dragging you down a little bit. So
Right.
Mail Tester, great tool to use to check those things. What you really want to do is also write your content so that it boosts engagements.
Okay.
So write things that invite clicks, that invite people to respond back to you.
Mm,
That helps. That you can even, if you're really feeling a bit cheeky, you can subscribe to other companies' email newsletter lists and then reply to their newsletters. Like that kind of adds up if they're sending from the same domain. But these are all little hacks around the edge. They're
yeah.
not where you need to focus. What I suggest you focus on is, first of all, segmenting your list.
Okay.
So think of Flair. We have a lot of different clients ranging from solo recruiters just
Hmm.
set up to running a team of 30, 40 type business leaders. Some of those things that we talk about are not going to be of interest. The solo person is going to want to know, who should my first hire be? If
Mm,
I send that email to the person running a team of 30, they're not going to read it.
mm,
Yeah. And thus, I send 100, only 50, my reputation drops. Far better to segment your email lists based on what you know people are interested in,
mm.
ask them, infer it, make a wild guess, and then only send them emails that you think are going to be relevant. How
Okay.
you segment that list, it varies depending upon what you're trying to do. Industry is a very, very clear and obvious one,
Mm,
but also asking people what they would like to know about. Do you want to know about our webinars? Do you want to know about our content? Do you want to know about our jobs?
yeah.
And then only give them what they've said they wanted. And
Okay.
that's going to get you a much healthier engagement rate, which will then boost your reputation.
Okay. So the point here is that we talk about this a lot as well, is that you don't want to become part of the problem. There's a lot of noise out there, and you want to be seen as somebody who adds value, who gives a lot, who's interesting. And every time
Mm.
your name pops up in my email inbox, I'm going to be like, yes, this is the person. So communicate with your audience, communicate with your clients,
Hmm.
particularly if you have multiple products or service
Yeah.
lines.
Service
That's a
lines.
really easy way to
Yeah.
segment, isn't it? But
Yes.
even within that, do they want to receive communication around selling? Do they just want to receive your newsletter, whatever it might be? And the best way to do that is to just talk to them.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. And as you say, this I think of myself as the content king of the Flair domain, uh, as I should. And for me, it's all about try not to fall into the trap of talking to them about what you want to talk about,
Mm,
because they're not going to want to talk about it. They're not going to open your emails. Your emails aren't going to get through. It's just not going to help. Talk about what they want to talk about.
mm,
And that can be frustrating because what they want to talk about isn't my service, but you're earning the right to pitch is
yeah.
the attitude we kind of take. So make sure you've got a really healthy balance of what they want to know about and occasionally what you want to talk about. So
Okay, perfect.
that's a big important thing.
And then the other thing that you sort of mentioned in that, if I can just pull it out again, is
Mm.
that to encourage responses and clicks. So this could be having the link to whatever it is that you're linking to in 3 different places, once at the
Hmm.
beginning of the email, once at the end, once in a PS. You could use
Yeah.
language that encourages things, that kind of stuff. That's what you're saying around that, right?
Yeah, it's a balancing act, and sometimes it's easier. If you say read our blog, click here, then
Mm,
you'll get more clicks, but you might not get as many blog reads as if you just emailed the blog in the email.
right.
You've got to choose what's most important, to have that activity so your reputation's good, or to have actually read what you're writing. There's always choices and consequences, but ultimately, if you're focused on content that's interesting to them and you're only sending it to people you suspect from your list will be interested in it,
Mm,
that's going to be a massive help. The other thing that you really want to think about is keeping a healthy list. So,
Okay. Ooh.
yeah,
What does that
this is the
mean?
one that, yeah, basically means deleting people. So fundamentally, if you look back over your email list, your hard-won multiple thousands of people email list, you'll probably find that, I don't know, maybe 50% of that list, 33 up to 75%, it could be a huge variety, have just not opened any of your emails. Like the last 4 or 5 or 6, they've just not opened them. Odds are you're pushed to clutter by the PA, or you're not even making it to the clutter, the front desk sending you off to spam at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And every single time you send that email, knowing it almost certainly won't get open, you're damaging your engagement rate. Far better to remove those people from your list. Don't delete them entirely. You know, I'm not saying give up on them. Just take them off the list, because it's not getting you anywhere. All it's doing is holding you back for the people who are interested and would like to see it in the inbox, but maybe because of everyone else, it's not making it there. It's hitting clutter instead.
Okay. So on that point, is it worth
Mm.
sending out like a we noticed you haven't opened the last 3 emails we sent you, and we're going to unsubscribe you from this because we don't want to become a pain.
Mhm.
Reply to us if you don't want us to do that. Is it worth sending those, or is it
That's
worth
what we
just
do.
doing it?
That's what we do. We
Right.
we send emails to people, because what sometimes happens is they were just busy and they kind of didn't read it 2 to 3 times in a row, and you ended up in clutter.
Yeah.
Don't send. So the other thing to remember, I should have said this earlier, is that your domain flair.co.uk applies to all the stuff you're sending through MailChimp, but also all the stuff you're sending one-on-one from your Office Outlook. So if you damage your reputation at MailChimp, you're damaging your reputation from your normal work emails. And
Okay.
I've got stuck in clutter, and I've seen clients in clutter
Yeah,
because the
mine as
world has
well.
thought that, yeah, it's a nightmare. So what you want to focus on is getting your emails so that they are going to people who are interested, only people who are interested. And you really want to try and avoid picking up. There's a couple of traps that are also out there. So some providers, a lot of us will scout email addresses, and some providers will use them as honey traps. Usually
Like
the bigger
buying
ones,
lists.
KPMG, buying lists and stuff. They'll say, yeah, p.aims@flair.co.uk is totally a legitimate email. And then they'll write a little rule that says, if anybody emails this email address, which doesn't exist for a person, blacklist them forever. That happens. Yeah. So you've got to be
Wow.
very careful about what emails you're sending to. And if anybody does say unsubscribe, you've got to honor that.
Okay.
Because if you don't, the next time you send it, you will be registered as a spam.
And then
And
that's very bad.
that's going to be very bad. So respect people's wishes to be taken off the list. Reach out to people who say they aren't on the list. Reach out to them and do say, I'm going to take you off, because you will get some people go, oh, no, I love it. I wondered
Yeah,
where they'd
we've had
gone.
that before, yeah.
We've had that before. But make sure you do it from that personal email address from Office 365 type thing,
Or even
rather
a
than
phone
through
call.
MailChimp.
If you've got if you've got a really good relationship with them, it might be that you're having a kit call or you're having a call with them in another thing, and you just tag on at the end, oh, by the way, we're going through our list and we just don't want to become a problem. And sometimes Mike's had this on numerous occasions where they've been like, oh no, I've just had an insane 3 months and like it's been nonstop and I do want to receive them, and that's fine. But yeah, it's something to be aware of. Now, Pete, we have had a couple of questions. I think now's a decent time for them.
Yeah.
So Gavin's asked, does how fast people open your email have an impact?
The honest answer is, Gavin, I don't know the technical processes to that level of detail. Given that people like LinkedIn on the social media platforms are really focused on dwell time and how long people have things open, I would be very surprised if, how long an email is open doesn't play an influence internally in people's, and how quickly they come to it. I've seen it, it's in my inbox, but I'm not going to open it, versus, yes, that person, I'm going to open that email immediately. So I would be surprised if it's not crept in there. They're constantly pushing this to make it better and better, to make your clutter more effective fundamentally. But I don't know that it does.
Okay, fantastic. And then Bob's asked a question. Does your bounce rate affect your online reputation? Should you remove emails which are no longer valid?
Yes and yes. Basically, yeah. It's, again, what you've just done is you've sent 100 emails and some of them didn't get delivered, so they didn't get engagement. Fundamentally, it's doing that. But also, you'll find, and this, you've actually led me beautifully, Bob, onto something else that I wanted to just call out. You know, I mentioned your ESP has a reputation, your internet
Yes.
service, your email service
So
provider.
that'd be like MailChimp or whatever.
Yes. So does the computer they choose to send your email from. So if you think about this, they've got a box of computers, and those computers all have an independent IP address. It's the unique
Right.
address for that email server. And not all email servers are created equal. So there is a Premier League server, which is reserved by the ESP for the people who have really healthy lists, low bounce rates, respect and subscribes, and high engagements.
Okay.
And then there's the Vauxhall Conference South type where actually, you know what, they've unsubscribed, but I know they sent that letter again. They've had a bunch of spam recognitions, and they will push you down because they want to protect the reputation of the box, the computer box that those emails come from, because that also plays a part.
So your emails, you like your MailChimps and that will actually punish you as well if you're sending the wrong email. So you've got like your Premier League email servers, and then you've got your just kickabout in the park servers, and the better your reputation, the higher up you're going to be on the good servers versus the low ones. That is incredibly interesting.
Oh yeah, if you're really advanced, so if you're a marketeer watching this with quite an advanced understanding of this already, what you can do is you can actually, but there are certain email service providers which will let you choose and manage your own servers.
Yeah.
So you can start sending to lists. You can segment your list and say, actually, they've not opened it twice. I'm not going to stop, but I'm going to move them down to the lower value email server of my own.
Okay.
And send it from there. Conversely, you could actually set up a second email domain.
That's a question that we've got actually from Natalie. Is it worth having another domain address for marketing so that your main email address isn't at risk?
Ooh, that is a good question. Choice and consequence rather than right or wrong. If you do that, then your marketing emails aren't benefiting from the reputation gathered by your business as usual one-to-one emails. So if you think about it, if you're sending an email to a client that's delivering the work they're asking for, or to candidates that delivering the roles they've asked to engage with, every single time they open and engage and send a response back, that's bubbling up your reputation. And then your marketing can lean on that to make contact with new people. Conversely, if you've given the marketing list to someone on 16 grand straight out of school and you say, send it to everybody, they're just going to do it. And it might not be very good, and it gets low engagement rates, even hits a few spams. Then all of a sudden, maybe the custom ones that your sales guys are writing to approach people aren't as successful as they were. That can happen. What I would say is, if you're being responsible as a marketeer and you're segmenting your lists and you're clearing out and maintaining a healthy list, I think it's worth keeping it all on the same domain. If you're really getting started, there is something to be said for maybe learning on a safer domain, which isn't going to suffer from those problems. And what you can even do is you can do both. So you can have a really healthy list of very engaged subscribers, which you know really did choose to be part of what you're doing, and that's working off your standard BAU email domain. And then you can have another email domain, which is delivering maybe a more esoteric mix of engagement rate. Now, the thing I don't know is, because the internet is a complicated place, if ultimately you link both of those domains back to some kind of parent website domain, do the ISPs ultimately figure it out? I don't know how advanced they've got these days, but I do know people who do things along those lines.
Okay, all right, Pete, I think we're coming to the end of our time now, so I think it's a good time to summarize. So in a second, I'm going to summarize up. But before then, let's talk about who we've got next week. So we do see the return of Big Mike Ames next week, and we're going to be talking about how to write job adverts that attract more candidates. And we are having a special guest, Anna Iverson, because that's obviously such an important part of recruitment in general. And moving forward, it's going to be more important as well. So that's going to be a great show. Make sure to join us next week. So Pete, if I may summarize, and there's going to be some things here that I'm going to struggle with. So essentially, what makes your emails read isn't just how you write your email. It is also your online reputation, which goes through various different stages and tests at various different companies. But ultimately, it can be affected by how many people are engaging with your content that you send out, how regularly they are engaging it, and also making sure that you're not being penalized or punished. Does that sum up? Have I missed any of the big ones?
Fundamentally, you got it on hit the nail on the head. The way I would kind of flip it round almost into the positive is if you send interesting emails that people
Mm.
want to read and choose to read, more people will then see your emails.
Okay, fantastic. I very much like that. Now, as always, we have a top tip. We've gone through a lot of stuff today. We've mentioned a lot of things. So people are watching this and thinking, Pete, I don't know what to do first. What would you say?
Okay, this is going to be painful, right? It's going to hurt. Go and delete everybody off your email lists that hasn't opened an email in the last 4 that you've sent. Just take them off the list and see what happens. Don't delete them. I didn't say mean delete. Remove them from your sending list.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So hard to do, but definitely worth doing. And I wonder if people do that. Come back to us and see what happens. So, as always, next week's going to be a great show. Thank you so much for watching. It's been great to have such engagement from you all today. Peter, thank you very much for coming and sharing your knowledge with us. It's been interesting.
It's been a pleasure. I apologize if I wasn't my usual on point self. As I said, a little tired.
I think you handled it like an absolute pro. And we look forward to seeing you next week. See you later, guys.